Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's spring baking live stream with the Pie Guy and City Market. We're here in the South End City Market Teaching Kitchen. Really enjoying being able to offer these virtual classes to our audience and reaching people that are outside of just the Burlington, Vermont area. Our instructor tonight is the Pie Guy, Gary Stuard. I'll have him come on in just a second, but just a few housekeeping things first. This is the only time that you'll see me on screen. I will go behind the scenes after this, and I'll be in charge of watching the question and answer box. So if at any point during tonight's class you have a question, a comment, anything like that, you can type it into that box. I will see them and I can either answer them myself through text if it's something that I can answer, or pass them along to our instructor if it's a baking question. If you're joining us a little bit late, you can hit live. It's down at the bottom by the play pause button, and that will catch you up to where we are live rather than making you watch from the very beginning. On that note, we are at about a 30 to 40-second delay from what I am saying here in the kitchen to what you are hearing. So if you've typed in a question and you're like, why haven't they gotten to it yet? Or why haven't they answered it yet? Just know that we've probably seen it already. We might have even started answering it, but you're just 40 seconds or so behind. I think without further ado, that's all from me. I will turn things over to Gary, our instructor, and you'll see me typing and answering questions behind the scenes. Gary, take it away.
Happy spring, everyone. This is Gary. I'm the Pie Guy, and I believe this is my fourth class to be doing, and I really enjoy it. As some of you who have watched some of my earlier classes, I love cooking, and for me, cooking is a way of expressing love, support, community, and even solidarity. Particularly over the past couple of years, it's been very trying with COVID, lockdowns, what have you. And there's many ways that we can creatively respond to situations like these. Getting out on the streets, agitating, protesting if necessary, speaking out. But also taking care of each other is another way of building community. And some of you know I've been an activist for environmental and social justice issues for more than 30 years. And what was really important to me wasn't just addressing some of the issues, the direct issues that we were trying to respond to, be it climate change, pollution, social justice, racial injustice, LGBTQ issues, but it was also how can we build community of support, building community, which to me is really sort of the fundamental of any kind of progressive action. We have to build community and support each other. And cooking is one way of doing it. I tell you, good food really puts people in a good space. And then it shows that, hey, I care about you. I just didn't go out and get some chips and store-bought dip. I really put some time and effort into the food that I'm presenting you. It's fun to do, and people love to come together. And when there's good food there, that makes it even more sweeter. I also love baking, and my mother and her mother, Grandma Creagh, out in West Texas, their pies were like deities coming down in pie form, and really expressions of love. And that's really how I got hooked, particularly with baking pies and tarts. Their pies were expressions of love, and they were beautiful, and they were, gosh darn it, they were incredibly delicious. So I've always used pies as a way of bringing people together and letting them know that I love and care about them, okay? And they don't even have to clean up the kitchen after me. I mean, I do that on my own. But anyway, now that it's spring, finally, I mean, I love the snow, I love winter, but it's like, my sap is running up here. And it's like, okay, I'm ready for spring. And so there's certain foods that are really, really good. And many of you are going to be celebrating Easter either as a religious holiday or secular. There's also Passover, and they're for people who observe the various earth religion traditions. And so spring is really a wonderful time of the year to kind of get out of the mothballs and dust off and celebrate the increasing light. And what better way to do that with a tart citrus dessert? And what we're going to be doing today is our tart au citron, lemon tart. And this is from, of course, the goddess of pies and cooking, or one of them, Martha Stewart. This is her pies and tarts cookbook. I mean, this came out in the mid 80s, and this to me has been my Bible, or one of the chief ones, and just really wonderful recipes. And this is where this recipe came from. And again, I want to bow to to the person who has inspired me and give due credit for this recipe. Of course, as we go along, and you can see that you can always adjust. I mean, you could make this into an orange tart. Why not? Maybe lime. And, you know, or with lemon tart, you can always add like raspberries or blueberries to it. So, but it's good to learn the basics. And this is really a basic lemon tart. And this is what the tart will look like. I finished this afternoon. And of course, I like people to see, okay, this is what we're aiming for. This is what we're going to be creating. So there you go.
Yes, and thank you to everybody for being flexible. We have originally had this class being a strawberry rhubarb pie, and it was just a little bit too early for rhubarb here. We wanted to showcase that, so we'll probably do that in June. Ooh, so wow. We did have a question on that. Someone said, for the next pie day on rhubarb, if I find rhubarb now, can I freeze it until you guys have the class?
Yes, you can. Now in Texas, of course, that's a totally different climate. Around this time, I could get fresh rhubarb, but that's down to almost tropical weather. And if I couldn't find rhubarb, I could find frozen. We could not find frozen.
7 different grocery stores.
Yeah, we looked, we tried, because I love strawberry rhubarb pie. And of course, I put orange juice and orange zest and also orange liqueur, like Grand Marnier, in my strawberry rhubarb pie. And I would usually serve it around this time, of course, in the summer too. So, but when we couldn't find it, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And like I said, citrus is can provide a wonderful base for a great dessert. And this one, you don't really have to knock yourself out, except, you know, the most time consuming is grating for lemons. Now, I had to grate 8 because I had to have the zest and juices of 4 lemons to make what I just showed you, the finished tart. But I also had to have the zest and the juice ready for now. But you only have to do 4. Yeah. And that's really the most time consuming, is grating. And, you know, just have some nice music on. I had the news on. I don't know why I was listening to the news. You may want to listen to something more relaxing. But anyway.
Yeah, they asked if they're going to find rhubarb now and freeze it, would they cook it or freeze it raw to have it ready for the pie?
I guess it depends on the recipe. For me, when I'm making like a strawberry rhubarb pie or even just rhubarb, you can freeze it and then you don't even have to thaw it when you're making your dish. Okay, you just put it in the bowl, you know, put the strawberries in there. You can use frozen strawberries too if necessary. I've done it. But look at the recipe. But for pies, frozen rhubarb is fine. But I would say rinse it, chop it, you know, don't freeze it whole, chop it. and put it in a bag and put it in the freezer, and it will be fine. Okay, I've done that many times.
And keep an eye on our class calendar for sometime in June, hopefully.
Yes, and we can either be just regular strawberry rhubarb pie, or I have a recipe for strawberry rhubarb meringue pie that has a blackberry liqueur in it, and that's a knockout too. But just regular strawberry rhubarb pie is divine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go in the process of making the crust. Now, in this recipe, I have it enough that it makes 2 single crust pies. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do it that way, because why not have another ball of dough, a pie crust ready? You know, you just wrap it up, put it in plastic or whatever, and put it in the freezer. And then when you're ready to make another pie, because when you make a pie, I'm sure people will say, oh, can you make another one? And there you are, you have, you know, right there, you got your dough, you just let it defrost a little bit, you know, enough that you can work with it and roll it out. So that's what we're going to do, making enough pie dough to have 2 single crusts. Or, I mean, in the future, if you're going to make something where you have a lid or you put lattice work, well, here you are. You got your bottom part for the bottom shell, and then you have your dough for the top. However, as a single lid or strips, or you don't even have to have the dough, half it. You can just roll it completely out and almost neatly fold it over, like I usually do, because it looks rustic, it looks nice, okay, for me. So there you are. Now, this recipe calls for 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, again, a rule of thumb for me is, one, I try to get organic, if at all possible. And of course, I love King Arthur baking company and their flour, and this is organic. And also, I believe strongly in chilling everything. I mean, if you have enough room in your freezer to put in the metal bowl, in Texas, I really had to do that because our place didn't have central air. And the main thing is keeping the shortening and the butter cold enough that it doesn't start melting in the flour. If that happens, you start getting a tough dough, and that is a cardinal sin. Okay, so, but along with chilling the butter and shortening, I also chill the flour and the sugar, and then of course you have ice water at the end to add the moisture. So keep everything cold. All right.
You want me to put some water in the freezer for you?
Go ahead. And maybe some, well, that should be enough.
Cool.
I probably don't need to have ice put in it. So 1.
Good. Somebody has asked, they're looking at the cookbook that you mentioned, Martha Stewart's Pies and Tarts. Is this one the lemon curd tart in that book? Is that what it's called?
No, that's a different one. And really just look for Tarte, T-A-R-T-E, Citron. That's Citron. You'll find that in this book, and I think they have like a citrus section. Let's see here. Ah, yes. Here we go. Yes, Donna Scott's Tarte au Citron. Here. If you have this book, it's probably section 5, 90 to 91. And now, I love curds. And I make curds. I usually make them during the Easter season or the spring season. I don't celebrate Easter religiously. And I like making lime curds and orange curd because the colors look very springy. But the thing about curds is, if I tried to make it here, you would be bored to death because I would be standing at the stove, stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring the curd. You have to get it thick, but you can't let it burn. So you really have to stay on it. And I'm making the judgment that you seeing me just stand at the stove stirring is boring. Okay. So unless we can do it much more entertaining than that, I probably won't do a curd here, but I do recommend doing curds. It's not impossible. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing. And really, in a way, like I think I mentioned before, I was a Zen Buddhist monk for almost 40 years. And for us, everyday activities was a mindfulness practice. Could be meditation, like paying attention, as well as cleaning the dishes, cleaning the house. It's a way of developing presence, being attentive, being mindful, and paying attention to what we're doing, not being distracted, not thinking about other things, but putting our whole being into what we're doing. Was really in mindfulness practice, what we're doing at the present moment is really the most important thing that we could be doing. So it's really putting your whole self into it and not being distracted, which kind of really makes it into a meditative experience, which can be very calming and relaxing and really being one with what we're doing and not being scattered. So got to have that when you're making, well, anything, but especially curds. Anyway, and as my husband would attest, folks really loved the orange and lime curds I would make for the spring holiday season. I'm going to get half a cup more of flour. Yes, that's half a cup.
So while you're making that, a couple questions on the lemons. Someone's asking, since the recipe calls for the juice of 4 lemons, about how much should that be? Is that about a cup of juice, half a cup of juice?
Well, that's what I got.
And that looks like a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it was almost like a cup, maybe a little more.
Okay.
But the fact it just says 4 lemons. So I try to get, not gargantuan lemons, but nice, medium-sized lemons. Mm-hmm. Organic, if at all possible, because I'm going to be zesting them. And with organics, I just rinse and dry, okay? If you can't get organic lemons, then maybe a little soap and water, and then rinse to make sure you can get off whatever chemicals that might be on the lemon. But I would just say get decent sized lemons and use them. And you don't have to worry about measuring, just get nice, decent sized lemons and do the work. All right, now I need 3 tablespoons of sugar.
Teaspoons.
Oh, sorry. I'm from the South. We always go overboard with sugar. Let me tell you, my mom, we're known for sweetened black tea. And my mother would, oh my goodness, this little fella is very, as you can see, I'm a clean freak.
I was gonna say, don't worry about mess. I like cleaning up, so.
Okay, so I don't know why that is happening. Anyway, my mother, hers was just getting a metal bowl, filling it up with water, putting in a cup of sugar, and putting the loose Lipton tea in it, and just boil it till it was just roiling, and then turn off the heat. And let's see here, 3 teaspoons of salt.
Salt? I can grab it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And then she was straining and then put it in the refrigerator, and it was like a syrup. And we would just pour it right over ice.
The real Southern sweet tea.
Yes, yes. So that's why I have a tendency, I have to watch myself not to put too much sugar. Okay. So here we are. So here we are.
And if people, some people have been sharing, but if people are comfortable sharing where they're watching from in the question and answer box, that's always fun to see where our audience.
Oh yeah, I love it. And it's just been amazing that we have folks from California, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Canada.
Yeah,
and
today so far we have Auburn, Massachusetts, Arlington, Virginia, Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada, Westford, Vermont, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Moortown, Vermont. So we've got a lot of Canadians and Vermonters represent, and then a few others.
But yay, yay, Canadians. And as you can see, initially I followed recipes when it was talking about cutting, cubing the butter, small cubes, and then working it in. That just took too much time, the cutting of them, and also trying to work it in the dough. And just a sec, I need a fork. Here we go. You can use a fork to work in the butter, or if you prefer, sometimes I just get in there and start working it this way, kind of spreading the butter a little bit, working it in. Don't put all your butter in all at once, because then the butter will start becoming one big ball of butter, and that's not what you want. So just a little bit at each time, you can work it in.
Yeah, Middlesex, Vermont, St. Paul, Minnesota, and New York City.
New York City and St. Paul. All right.
And someone commented, be sure you do the zesting part of the lemons before the juicing part. So that's great tip.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, do the zesting first. But then, of course, you want to make sure that you have enough of the white covering underneath the yellow part of the skin, so that you don't want to just zest it completely to the juicy part, because then if you try to get the juice out, it'll just disintegrate in your hands, and that is not very helpful. So again, as you can see, I'm working this. I'm putting a full stick, which is butter, and non-salted butter, by the way. You want to use sweet butter, no salt, because we already put in some salt into the flour, and that is more than sufficient. If you accidentally discover that you have put salt, salted butter in your flour, it's not the end of the world. Okay, it's just,
it's going to be more salty than
it's going to be a little more salty. If you have to, you can add a little more sugar to the flour before you start adding the water to it. So add a little more sugar if you accidentally was using salted butter. There are ways. See, that's where paying attention comes in. If you all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, I used salted butter, well then just add some more sugar to it, and that should adjust it. Okay, so
got Winooski right down the road. Hi,
Winooski.
Yeah.
Hey. My husband and I were from Winooski. Now it's warm in here, I have to say, and the butter, even though we had this butter chilled, it's a little bit softer than I would prefer, but it's still okay.
It was a really warm day out today too. It was almost like 65. It's nice.
Wow. Now it's raining.
Yeah. Now it's raining and thunderstorming. So it'll be nice to have something springy and reminds us of sunshine.
Yeah, I don't know what the temperature will be this Sunday. If it's going to be cold or...
I will look for you.
So even if it's cold, well, all the more reason to have a springy, even summery dessert, like a citrus dessert. So cold or warm or just perfect, it's fine.
High of 47 on Sunday, so not too warm.
Not too warm, but that is fine. This dessert will warm you up. And letting people know I'll be making an Italian roasted leg of lamb. So I couldn't find one with a bone in it. So I'll be doing that and making 2 desserts. And we're having a potluck and we're having friends coming over and just Saturday evening and celebrating friendship, the spring, new beginnings, all of that. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, at the end, if you don't want paper shredded into your flour, you just roll the butter, stick of butter, what's left, and you can hold it in your hands without it slip sliding and getting all mushy. You know, I've learned that. And again, if you have a grater like this, you just use, don't try to do this. You're not going to get anything but a big mess, okay? It's where they have the slice or the horizontal slice, okay? And here we go, almost done. And see, it's really easy. It really is easy. When people say, oh, I can't do it, or that's too hard, and it's like, well, one, have you tried? And also, it does help to have a good recipe. And I have been using this recipe for quite some time.
How many pies would you say you've made in your life?
Oh.
If you had to estimate.
Oh my gosh. I have no. Oh, it's probably in the hundreds. Who knows? Any idea, Fred? Fred is my husband. How many pies do you think I've made? At least since you and I have known each other.
I would say probably 150 to 200.
All right, Fred's guess is 150 to 200.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
Someone has asked thoughts on using a food processor to make the dough instead.
You can. You can. I'm old school, okay? And this is how my mother did it, and this is how her mother did it. But, you know, recipes now, they talk about using a like, what do you call it? A mixer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Food processor, yeah.
Yeah, food processor. You can do it that way. I just love the feel of it. Because by feeling it, I know, okay, this is ready. But other ways of doing it are just fine, okay? I was not, well, I guess when I was younger, I did like playing in mud.
Mud pies.
Not in the, but using my hands to make things. So this is just part of that. So if you want to use a food processor, go ahead and do it. I would just look at a cookbook, baking book, and just see how they recommend doing it. And once you do it once, you know how to do it. Okay. As you can see, this kind of looks like meal. And that's what you want. Little pockets of butter, okay? Like little pea size. Because again, we want pockets of butterfat and shortening. When there's pockets, then you get a flaky crust, okay? And that's what you want. You want a flaky crust. Okay, now, a cup. Okay, half of a cup. Okay. I'm so used to doubling things. Half of a cup of shortening. Now, I know the real old school folks out there would use Crisco, and my mother did. She even used butter flavored Crisco, and I just like, no, I won't. I won't do that. I will use real butter, okay? Real butter, not fake. But I use Spectrum's organic olive vegetable shortening, which is non-hydrogenated, which is a little bit healthier.
And why do you do the half butter, half shortening? You want to talk about?
That is because the shortening provides, helps it to become, helps with the flakiness of it. The butter provides flavor. Okay. And I have seen it like for certain kind of pies, like mince pies or even a blackberry pie. By the way, this is my pastry cutter working in the shortening or the butter. But certain pies, they would, use lard, just lard crust. And I think for the long time, that's what people had was lard. I've seen people use that for mince pies. I remember one time I did make a mince pie with lard crust, and it was a mince pie that had lard in the fixing as well as real meat, and it was great, but it was like super unhealthy. And also like blackberry pies, and people, instead of using lard, would use vegetable shortening. So I would just look at what the recipe, if they, some recipes will call for shortening crust, some still ask for a lard crust, but I won't use lard. But the lard, excuse me, the shortening helps with the flakiness, the butter adds the flavor. So it's a combo. And this has just worked really well. I mean, I've done straight butter crusts, but I like this one. Now, if I'm going to use a straight just butter crust, it's usually for what I think the French call pâté sucré. Yeah, and it's like a cookie crust. And then I'll use that. Okay, so again, I follow, usually what the recipe calls for. And if they call for a typical pie crust, then I would use butter and vegetable shortening, because I like the flakiness and the taste. I mean, who doesn't like butter? Okay. We're almost done here. I'm ready for the water. Okay, merci. All right, and with this,
I don't know how to say you're welcome in French. I never took French.
how do you say that? Merci. Oh, derrière. Derrière.
Yeah.
So like, don't mention it.
Not Spanish.
Yeah, don't mention it. So, all right. So this is close to what I want. Kind of mealy looking with little pea-size pockets of shortening and butter. Okay.
Jackie asks, if the butter has heated up too much during the grating process, would you place the butter and flour mixture into the refrigerator to firm the
Sure,
tray?
you can do that. Yeah. Like in Texas, oh my gosh, the summers are just unbearable. And we weren't fortunate enough to have central air, except for heating, but not air conditioning. So even with the fan on and AC right next in the room next to me, it wasn't enough. So if you notice the butter is getting a little bit too soft, put them in the refrigerator. The flour mixture that you had so far, and your butter and the shortening. Okay, that's what you want. Okay, now it says here 5 to 6 tablespoons of ice water. More is needed. So the thing is, here we go. Usually I see about a cup, but the thing is not to put too much water in because you don't want a soupy, sticky, well, certainly not soupy, but not even really sticky because then you're going to get a tough crust, okay? You don't want that. Moist enough to scoop it all together and make a ball that's soft and pliable, okay? So I just put in a little bit at a time. That's enough right there. And I work it in with a fork. And already you can see it's starting to clump. Can I see? It's not quite there, okay? You don't want it to where it can easily, the ball of dough easily crumbles. You want it where the ball that you do form stays, holds. So this is what it's starting to look like, and you can see it's clumping more and more. You don't want to have any leftover dry flour, and work it in for a while. Sometimes it takes a little time for the water to work in thoroughly into the dough. Alrighty, and this is what, and look at that.
Thank you for all the people putting the French into the chat.
They're putting what?
They're putting the French for you're welcome into the chat.
Oh, merci beaucoup.
More people speak French.
Yes. Unfortunately, I didn't get enough time in France, so that's where the monastery was, to learn French. I tried, but the thing was, it was the primary languages were Vietnamese, of course. It was a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monastery, and English, which for a lot of the Vietnamese.
Somebody just wanted a close up of the dough texture.
See, that's what
not
you
soggy,
want.
not sticky.
No, and I get all the dry. There's not really any dry stuff left, which is good. And so here I am working. And since this is for 2 single crusts, I'm going to split it like so. Voila. So you don't want to overwork it either. Though I did have a friend who tried many times to make pie dough, and one time he just got so frustrated he threw it against the wall, and it became compliant. And we can put this in the.
Do you want me to wrap it in plastic wrap?
Yes, if you could. Put this in the refrigerator, and I would chill the ball of dough for at least 30 minutes. You can go longer than that, and there we go. And I'm making a mess. So there you go. So now, if you hadn't tried or seen me teach how to make pie dough, there you are. And now the only thing left to do is to roll it out. Now, I don't know if y'all want me to do that per se, because what we can do is show them what's in the refrigerator. Probably would need to put it back in real quick. Let it stay chill before I put in the filling. And let's see. This is what it looks like. Okay. The one that I showed you earlier, it was a tart pan that you could lift it up and slide, get it off of the part of the tart pan, and then slide it off from the bottom that is removable. Okay, it's movable. And there you are. You can use like a quiche, okay? 9 inches, that's usually what I use. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
So there we are. And again, with rolling, I prefer the French rolling pin. I don't like the one with the handle, but that's just personal.
Do you want a board to roll on, or do you want to roll right on the table? Like a pastry board?
Yeah, I can do that. Well, let's have a board. Thank you. Okay. I do have a dough that I made earlier.
Linda wants to know if the monastery you're speaking of was called Plum Village.
Yes, it was.
There you go. Linda knows where you were.
Yeah, that's where I was. I was Thich Nhat Hanh's first Western male that he ordained.
Cool.
That was a long time ago. And it was a great learning experience. But along the way, I realized that being a monk really wasn't my calling. But I met some really amazing people when I was there, just from all over the world. And I did get to go to Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, and mainland China for a tour that he did with his Western nuns and monks to help people in Asia to reclaim their spiritual heritage, of which Buddhism is one of them, because they were kind of adopting wholesale Western lifestyles, particularly massive consumerism. But I think I learned a lot of wonderful things from being there, from being in Plum Village. But I think one of the main things I got was the importance of recognizing that we're all connected with everything, not just with other people, but non-humans, even seemingly non-living things like soil, rocks, mountains, what have you. And you would term it as interbeing. We are with everything that we interact with, and our very selves are made up of non-self elements. That's why I became such a strong environmental activist. Is the world, the natural world, is us. Okay, so how I eat, how I interact with non-humans as well as humans has an important impact on how we show up in the world and what happens in our world. So I try to, that was really sort of the base of my activism, coming from that place. And also, when I cook, I want to try, I have a limited budget, but when I'm having folks over, I try to have the healthiest ingredients as possible. We are what we eat. So, but anyway, you can see how I'm doing this, rolling it. Thank you. Voila. No. Not hard. And this has been nicely chilled for a while, so it works quite well. I'm making a mess, but that's okay. Because artists make a mess.
And I like cleaning up, so.
Yeah, and some people love cleaning up. More power to them. I may not necessarily like cleaning up, but I hate a dirty kitchen. I just can't stand it. I want a clean space when I'm working as much as possible. So I have a little brush that I can brush off the flour. These are really great. Everyone should have a good rolling pin, whatever kind you like, that you feel that is easy to hold and work with, okay? And have a brush or two, a small one and a big one. I find that these are always helpful for me in my cooking, okay? And here it's a wonderful tool to get the flour off. I mean, you don't want your pie dough in the tin or glass pie plate to be covered in flour. You don't want that. So here we are. Here's my dough. Forgot to bring another pie plate, but this will do.
This is a good option for people if maybe they're out of pie plates or they don't have one. You can do it.
You can use a,
pan.
yeah, a
It's a
cake
9-inch
one.
cake pan.
Yeah. It's being resourceful. It's being creative. And also it's like, okay, next time I need to remember better. So that's okay.
Well, and also if you're a big baker, having one of those removable bottom tart pans, I found is like the best thing.
It is. I remember the first time I got my first tart pan and I made a strawberry tart and I was so proud of myself because I was doing something, you know, my mother never did it. And, you know, she did traditional Southern pies and she was fabulous with those. But I was a little more adventurous. I wanted to try things that I hadn't tried before or seen before. And being a bit enamored of Europe, I love trying European pastries. And having a tart pan, it's just, it was a wonderful feeling to do something like, wow, I'm doing something that people in, you know, the patisseries in France, the pastry shops in France, and then in Germany and others do, you know. And I'm just some hick kid from Texas making tarts. It's a wonderful feeling, you know, when you expand and do something that, you know, you weren't taught to do. And of course, I loved Gourmet Magazine, which unfortunately no longer is published. I still have Gourmet magazines from the 80s that I bought long ago. And they were really some of my main teachers in the sense of finding wonderful recipes. I particularly during the holiday season, I would just, oh my gosh, I would just go crazy trying new things, you know. It's wonderful.
So you basically just folded the edges over onto themselves to make them thicker.
Right, yeah, because if there's not over, the crust will shrink. And this may be a little thin. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Some people like kind of a rustic look.
Great. And I will go stick that in the fridge when you're done.
Yeah, the thing is, do not just automatically put in your filling when it's not been chilled. And really, with this one, I think the crust, I would let it sit for an hour. So it's really good. And then with this one, you don't have to bake it ahead of time, like most pie crusts. This one just needs to be chilled, and there you are. Okay, you can, once you get your filling done, then you can pour it into the pie shell and then put that in the oven.
I'll leave that one, the other one in there until we're ready to fill it to keep it
Right,
cold.
okay.
Because it is very warm in this kitchen for whatever reason.
Yes, when the kitchen is very warm, your crust will start, you know, doing its thing. Now, this recipe calls for 6 eggs, not just yolks, but 6 whole eggs. So I'm going to pour that in there. Get all the eggy goodness out of this bowl.
Have you ever tried making plant-based and or vegan pies and tarts?
I had made some vegan, at least one vegan, well, two. I tried one out for myself, and I should have brought that cookbook. It it was beautiful looking, and I know you can get non-gluten flour that just looks like regular flour. This one was using like millet flour, rice flour, tapioca flour, some other flours, and even a ground up chia seeds, I think. And so it had a brownish look to it, and it wasn't as easily workable with like uh, regular white flour pie dough, but the flavor was really good.
Good.
Because from those different grains, I think it just had a lovely taste to it. And I did try, I think I also taught a class with it with my salted caramel apple pie. And the folks loved it. They really did. And in fact, I made one for someone for the holidays, and they loved it.
Great.
So I wish I remember that cookbook. I found it at the Barnes and Noble here in Burlington. So just look around. It had beautiful pictures, and quite often I get cookbooks where it provides me pictures of what I'm going to be making. And if it looks good and the recipe looks good, then I'm willing to do it. So I'm willing now to make a gluten-free desserts and vegetarian desserts. I haven't done vegan yet, but there are good vegan cookbooks. So I would say look for cookbooks for vegan baking. Okay, I think that's important. I did once try to make a vegan crust using it wasn't margarine, but it was more like something of vegan butter, and the crust was so brittle that when I pulled out my lavender blueberry pie that had that kind of crust, it all of a sudden just cracked and blueberry blood went everywhere. It looked like somebody shot it with a rifle. But the folks who had it, they loved it. But to me, I found the crust was tasted like cardboard. But I didn't use a vegan recipe. I just substituted the vegan butter. And so I would say try to find a vegan cookbook and go from there. See what you got. I'm just so used to sinful desserts.
All the butter.
Yes, butter, sugar. I'm probably misquoting Martin Luther, but supposedly he said, when you sin lustfully, like go for it. That's probably a misquote, but it's sort of like, okay.
Treat yourself from part.
Yeah, it's like don't do it often. Excuse me, as I get another cup. It's sort of like, okay, don't eat desserts all the time. And most of the desserts that people eat are like store-bought or whatever. And it's like, no, and most of them aren't good. So don't do it often. But when you do it, when you have dessert, make it at all possible. And, once a week or 2 times a month, that should be fine.
Somebody's asked, would jumbo eggs work just as well as large?
Yes. Yes. Very much so.
And just so everybody knows, note in the recipe that it says for this part, you subtract the 2 tablespoons first. I know we didn't.
And I'm not going to be grounding the almonds because I did that ahead of time. And it took a while to grind them up because my grinder, I kept getting like whole slivers of almond flakes. And that was frustrating.
I do like that you say in the recipe you can just use almond flour. Like they've already done the work for you.
Yeah, you can use almond flour. I kind of prefer doing it myself because I prefer it kind of fresh. But, you know, if you're pressed for time, then there's no problem, you know, using almond flour.
Or
I would just say, let's see, -2 tablespoons. Just keep it in the refrigerator or even better in the freezer. Okay, you want to keep, don't let, nuts can go rancid. Okay, they just can. So there you are. And thanks for the person who mentioned, I didn't forget, but it's good. Follow the recipe. And those 2 tablespoons of sugar would go into the almonds, slivered or sliced. And you would put that into the blender with it, plus some half a teaspoon of almond extract and grind it up. I've already did it because it takes time to do that.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of the times we build these classes as their demos, not cook-alongs, because a lot of times we have steps done ahead in advance. We don't
right, and part of that is to not torture you.
Yeah, to watch us blend almonds for 20 minutes.
Flying everywhere.
I'm going to mute us while he's blending, so we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We just don't want to blow out everybody's eardrums with the blender.
Yes, and so this is what it should look like. As the recipe said, it should be pale, thick, and can form a ribbon. So there you go.
Someone has asked, can you substitute roasted almonds rather than blanched?
Yes, you can. In fact, I prefer,
right?
Yeah, you just have to brown them. But when you do, you better keep an eye, because once they start turning a little bit, they can burn. And also when you pull them out, if they're on a tray, put them in a bowl, because if they're still on that hot surface, they will keep cooking and they'll wind up burning. I speak from experience, okay? So I don't want that to happen to you. But I was thinking about that myself, but I said, no, we'll just do it this way. But roasting them does bring out the flavor. That's why I love recipes with ground up hazelnuts. Like the last last pie that I made was the famous chocolate espresso Kahlua tart, or it's like a mousse, and that you have the crust made from ground up chocolate wafers, the thin wafers, and then you have roasted ground up hazelnuts.
Delicious. It was amazing.
Yeah. And if you don't use like whole hazelnuts, and I couldn't find them. Here.
Supply chain issues.
Why? Why? So I use a hazelnut flour, but I toasted it just a little. I just got a skillet, a little bit of oil. No, I didn't even put oil in it. I just put the hazelnut flour in and just worked it. And when I started seeing a little bit of toastiness, and you can smell roasted hazelnuts. I was like, okay, that's it. Okay. So if you can't find whole hazelnuts, and I don't know why it's difficult to find them at times, you can use hazelnut flour, and there is a company.
I think it's Bob's Red Mill.
Yes.
I think we still have it left.
Yes, and they also have a. Sorry to turn my back on you, but this is, yeah. Bob's Red Mill. Gosh, I've known this product since when I worked at Whole Foods in Houston back in the late 80s. They have one for almond flour. So if push comes to shove and you can't find the kind of, I would use slivered almonds. You could use blanched almonds. I think you don't want the skin on them because the skin is slightly bitter. The same thing with roasting hazelnuts. You want to roast them because of the flavor. Also, you want to get the skin off of them. So after they cool, after you have roasted them and the skin starts cracking and peeling, let them cool, and then you rub them to get the skins off. So it's best to try to get them skinned already. Well, you won't find hazelnuts like that, but you can find blanched almonds and slivered almonds. And those will be the ones I would roast a little bit, making sure they're not burnt. Okay, so here we are with this. Now we add the lemon juice right here. I'm going to pour that in here. Oh, that smells so good. There we go.
Again, we weren't going to make you watch Gary zest and juice 4 lemons. He's done this ahead of time.
Yes, I mean, if I was in a foul mood, I might do that, but not even that. That is boring. Okay, but look at that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's 4 lemons of zest. I forgot.
I'm so excited for how good it's going to smell in here while it's baking.
Oh, can you smell it?
I'm excited. I love lemon.
Oh, I do
lemon
too.
Everything.
And again, I think you could do this with oranges. Oh,
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
If people experiment with this recipe, or even if you just make this recipe as is, we'd love to see photos and hear about how your experience went. So.
Yeah. And I bet you can do it with lime.
Or grapefruit even.
Sure.
Grapefruit tart.
Yeah, I've seen like a grapefruit chess pie.
Nice.
And chess pie or buttermilk pie, quite often, I know chess pie does, definitely, but has usually lemons. And I've seen them substitute lemons with grapefruit, and I'm sure that is good. You could use regular limes, or you may want to use, what's the key lime?
Key limes, yeah.
But I've made curds with just regular limes, and it works fine. Works fine.
Your butter is over there by the stove.
Yes, okay, all righty. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, Linda wants to know, would hazelnut flour in the crust for your strawberry rhubarb pie work, or do you think it would be too much of a flavor clash?
Say that again.
If you substituted some or part of the flour in the crust for your strawberry rhubarb pie recipe with hazelnut flour, would it work well? Or would
maybe
it clash?
not hazelnut. I think almond. It's just a gut feeling. I mean, you can try.
Yeah, try it. Let us know.
Yeah, try it.
Be our guinea pig.
But I think almonds with strawberry and rhubarb, somehow it just seems like that would work. So that's just my 2 cents right there for what it's worth. Yeah, sometimes like I've made like peach pie, and it's mostly the same kind of pie crust that I've shown folks, but then I'll add a little bit of almond flour to it, because I'm going to add, well, almonds and peaches go well together.
Mm-hmm.
They just do. And then because also I put a bit of amaretto in the peaches, so you have some almond in the crust, and then you have the amaretto flavoring. So, it's sort of like learn the basics, and then you can play with it. Okay, really, that's sort of like with other arts. You kind of learn the basics, and then what combinations work. Blah, blah, oh, this is the basic recipe, but I think I can tweak it to where, something I think might taste good, and go for it. Okay. So we've added the butter, the lemon juice and zest. Now we have this mixture. And again, this is what I used.
We started with the
Right,
sliced
and
almond.
grind it up. And I learned today, don't put too much, like the whole cup, I believe, in the blender, because it starts, it won't thoroughly, unless you have a, I guess, a better one. It won't ground up all the flakes right away. You have to keep doing it over and over, and you don't want to get like almond butter.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want that, or marzipan, which is even worse. Oh, and
Someone says they would love to see you make your lemon chess pie, so maybe we'll do that for a future.
oh, lemon chess pies are, oh, they're gorgeous. And then again, you can add raspberries, blueberries, blackberries. Oh, and you can even probably do, I think I've seen some with rhubarb, because you have to have the rhubarb cooked.
Yeah, it won't cook enough in the
And
pie.
cooked and,
Or
you know,
strawberries, like thin slices of strawberries.
you could.
Would be good. Strawberry lemon.
I don't know. I haven't seen that, but people can try. But I always have done with blueberries, and I have done it with raspberries, and it's really, really good.
Jackie wants to know if you
okay.
used, did you use a microplane to zest all your lemons?
I use what?
A microplane? How did you zest your lemons? You used the small side of your, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I use. This is what I use. And, you know, after a while, it gets all gummed up, so I get a knife and clean it out. And of course, I clean the inside, scrape it out, and then do it over again. There may be better zesters, but, you know, I'm kind of old-fashioned. So if you can find a better way of doing it, that's fine. Now, here's the almond mixture that has been, the almond flakes that have been ground up. I added the 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then half a teaspoon of almond extract, and it really brings it out. So, so here we go. Maybe a little bit at a time. Work that in.
Do you need to have, like, would this bake if you didn't have the almonds in it? So say you had someone that had a nut allergy, could you make this nut free, or would it be a really weird texture without the ground up?
I don't know. You could give it a try.
I feel like the
It's
eggs
mostly
would
the flavoring
Yeah.
that's, you know, with almonds. It does kind of help thicken it. Because yeah. Then I would just look for basic lemon tart.
Without the nuts.
Just find a recipe that's just lemon tarts and go with it. There are people who, that would be such a disappointment for me not to be able to have nuts.
Yeah,
You know?
well, I was just thinking it would be really sad if you thought it would work without it and left it out and it just didn't.
I would say don't use this recipe. Yeah. Find a just straight up lemon tart.
Linda says she'd love to learn more about your hazelnut crust and agrees that almond flavor is wonderful. I add it to my chocolate cakes and brownies instead of vanilla extract.
You are an artist. You are an artiste. And that's a fun thing when you know something, a recipe well enough, then you start adding to it. You make it your own. And sometimes little, you know, like, oh, that didn't really work out, you know. But
that's like my favorite.
That's okay. Somebody will eat it. If it's sweet, somebody will.
Still sugar.
Yeah, it's still sugar. It's still chocolate. You know, somebody will eat it. You know, but you know, sometimes some famous desserts or dishes happen by accident. Somebody forgot something.
Chocolate chip cookies happened by accident.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
She was trying to make chocolate cookies and thought if she just chopped up a bunch of chocolate, it would melt and make chocolate dough, and it didn't. It stayed in chips.
You never know. You could be a creator of an incredible dessert. So, but, you know, again, for newbies, is find a good cookbook, basic things. And once you master those, and this is for newbies, then you can start experimenting. And that's the fun. Also, you just start finding recipes that are more challenging. And you can do it. You just need to know the recipe ahead of time. Know what to expect, okay? Know what your ingredients, get your ingredients. Look at the stages that the recipe calls for, like this should be ready at this time. And so you're not running around like a chicken without your head, which I've done before, I hate to say, and that's not fun. So read the recipe, look at it, and figure out, okay, this is what I need. I need to have this ready at this time. And then it's start becoming like clockwork. You know what to expect. Okay, I think we're ready.
I think you just need to do the vanilla.
Thank you.
And I'll get you your pastry tart
yes.
shell out of the fridge.
How could I possibly forget vanilla?
Because we've been talking about almond this whole time. So
Right. Also, you know, make sure you're getting real vanilla, not artificial vanilla. You know, it's like buy quality. You don't have to buy a lot of it, but darn it, buy quality. Don't buy imitation. I mean, to me, that's just obscene.
And if you're around the co-op, we sell it in bulk, so you just get what you need.
Right, exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Or you can be like me and buy it like a quart at a time and go, oh, that was really expensive,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
Never imitation. Anything. Uncle Gary says that's verboten. You do not do that. Okay. I'm sorry, I get kind of righteous when it comes to cooking. Because I have been at universities and colleges, and they serve the slop. And they, you know, it's like, we should be grateful for it. And it's like, what the heck is this? No, you don't want to have that kind of reputation. You want to have the kind of reputation that, you know, you're not being ostentatious. You're just presenting something that's delicious and that you put your thought and energy into, and people can tell it. People know when, you know, somebody is really bringing their best self to whatever, you know. It's sort of like if you get invited to a potluck, don't you dare, unless it's, you know, very informal, be the one who only brings chips and store-bought dip. You know, that is not, and I've had people do that, and it's like, no. Okay, I got more filling, but that's okay.
We have another one chilling in the fridge.
We have one in the fridge. And in fact, we can go ahead and get that one out, and we can start baking that.
Is this going to happen for other people? Will this recipe make more?
It will be extra.
Okay.
I think this container, I mean, this tart pan or ceramic tart container, it's a little bit smaller, but don't fret, because you have another crust.
Or you can just bake it and eat it with a spoon.
Yeah, or yeah, you can make it like a little custard, I would imagine. You can do it that way.
You've just made the City Market staff very happy. We now have 2 of them.
Yes, I do, folks, I do have a reputation here. Not a lot.
Everybody around here knows you're the pie guy.
Not a lot. So let's take some of this and put it in here. Okay, that's fine. Okay. And if you didn't have another piece of crust, then just refrigerate this, and you can probably put it in a little custard things or little bowl and cook it, and there you are. Okay, we're ready. We have an oven at 375.
Yep. And just a reminder that those racks tilt forward, so when we go to like pull them out, we'll have to be careful.
Yeah,
but
I had
that'll be our
a
job.
little bit of an experience with that earlier.
They're also very squeaky. Sorry. You can probably hear that through his microphone. We're going to pop these guys in the oven. So now is the perfect time. We're going to wrap up soon since we have the finished tart to show off again. We're just going to bake these off camera. Now is the perfect time to put any questions that you have for Gary in the chat. Reminder that we'll see them at a little bit of a delay, so I'll give people some time if they're, frantically typing. I won't close the chat immediately. But big thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight to watch. We had over 40 people at one point, so that was amazing to know that 40 of you were sitting in your homes watching us bake this tart. Go ahead and put questions into the chat, and I will send a survey link out tomorrow. Would love to know your thoughts on the class.
And do we have time to taste one of these?
Absolutely. And I was going to say also just keep an eye on our Eventbrite or our class calendar page when I post June classes. Hopefully we'll have Gary on the schedule with that strawberry rhubarb pie that we've promised you.
Yes. Have to have strawberry.
You want to show off the removable?
Yes, thank you.
In case people haven't seen these before. Ta-da!
There you are. I don't have a big enough plate to slide it off onto, but this is, you have the metal, and you may have to get a spatula to kind of loosen it, and then it'll just slide off.
They're so cool.
And look at that. I mean, it's not hard, but people kind of think, oh, how did you do that?
So fancy.
Well, you don't have to tell them. So I spent hours. Nah, well, they probably won't believe that, but still, it's really quite grand.
And if you do make this, please do send us photos. Anytime you have my email, it's the email that I sent you the class link with. So please feel free to email me photos or experiences on making this. I will forward them all to Gary so that he can see them. We'd love to know that people take what they learn in these classes and actually go and do it in their own homes, since we can't all be here in person baking together. So please send photos. It's always awesome.
And now
we get to eat.
Of course, they're all saying the test is in the pudding or the pie. And I think I mentioned in the recipe, you can use whipping cream or creme fraiche or mascarpone.
Jackie asks, if you were to bake the extra filling in custard cups, would you do them in a water bath or just in the oven?
I've never done it because it's not quite a custard.
Yeah.
Not really.
It's like
I just put it in the oven and just kind of make sure it doesn't burn. Okay, now what we're going to do is try creme fraiche and mascarpone. I'm wondering if, just to kind of get a trial and see which would be best, I'm thinking creme fraiche might be really good because it's a cross between sour cream and whipping cream, and the tartness might kind of counter the tartness. It's the sweetness of the tart.
Someone asked how long you bake it for.
You cook the tart at 375 for 30 minutes, then you lower it to 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes. It said 25.
Or until it's set. It really depends.
Until it sets. Yeah. Don't wait until, it says 25 and it's already turning brown. Really brown. No, you don't want to do that. And I'm giving you also some mascarpone so you can see which one goes best with. All
right, so mascarpone is closest to the edge of the crust.
Right here, yes. And here you go.
To the person asking when we're going to do the strawberry rhubarb pie, I haven't scheduled June classes yet. I only schedule about a month ahead. So when Gary and I can sit down and talk about a good date for that, it'll post. I tend to post, this is a little secret insider tip for all of you still watching. I tend to post classes for the next month around the 10th of the month previous. So sometime around May 10th, maybe between like the 10th and the 12th, you can start checking our Eventbrite and our class calendar page for June classes. But Gary and I usually tend to do these classes on Thursday nights because that's the easiest for his schedule. So hopefully a Thursday in June, we will be doing some strawberry rhubarb pie together.
So this is what it looks like. Isn't that beautiful?
It's so pretty. It's so springy.
Yeah, it is so lovely. It's perfect for Easter, Passover, or if you're doing like a secular Easter or, you know, celebrating spring. It's lovely.
Linda wants to know if you've ever made this recipe with limes. I know we've talked about it, but have you ever done it yourself?
No. And in fact, this is the first time I've made this.
Wow.
This recipe. But I've done similar.
It's
things.
delicious. I like it better with the creme fraiche, I think. They're both good, but you're right, that little bit of sour.
No, this is, and the almonds really help.
All right, so rather than just having you watch us and listen to us eat for the last 6 minutes of class, I'll leave the chat open for another minute or so. I'll let Gary say his closing words, and thank you all so much for tuning in. Oh, there we go, the Easter Bunny's here. Let me zoom out a little bit. There you go, get the full effect. Zoom out a little bit.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, watching with me as we did this together. And so whatever you celebrate, forgive me for saying this, but I'm hoping that you have a great holiday weekend and enjoy the spring. And I remember somebody telling me, some bunny loves you. So love you all, and remember the good news of pie, and spread your love to all your loved ones. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Good night and enjoy the rest of your day.